Hello everybody, this is Classroom Chess with the 6th video in the series, and this one is about the knight. As you can see, the whole first row and the last row of the chessboard is occupied with pieces, because we covered all the other pieces in previous videos. The king, the queen, the 2 rooks and the 2 bishops. And the only piece left from the first rank is the knight. And then we're almost there. It's just the pawn we need to talk about, and that will be in the next video. The knight is a complicated piece. It likes to jump around. It is the only piece that can jump over other pieces. But let's first see how the knight moves. So we have 4 knights at the start of the game. 2 knights for white and 2 knights for black, and the knights start on the squares b1, g1, b8 and g8. That's where the knights will always start at the start of the game. Sometimes you see beginner players who have the king and the queen the wrong way around, and I talked about that when we talked about the king and the queen. And also you sometimes see people who have the bishop and the knight the wrong way around. So it's important that you start with the pieces on the right squares, and the knights start on the b1, g1, b8 and g8 squares. But let's move our knight from g1 and let's put it on e4. So it has a little bit of room, and I can show you how the knight moves in the game. The knight can move forward and can move backward and to the side and to the other side, but it does in a very special way. The knight moves 2 squares in one direction and then 1 square in another direction. And the best way to show you how that works is by drawing you. I won't draw the arrows, I will just show you where the knight can go. So the knight on e4 can go 2 squares up and run to the right, 2 square f6. It can go 2 squares up and 1 to the left, 2 square d6. It can go 2 squares down and 1 to the right, which is f2. And 2 squares down and 1 to the left, which is d2. But it also can go 2 squares to the right and 1 to the top, g5, 2 squares to the right and 1 down is g3, 2 squares to the left and 1 up, c5, and 2 squares to the left and 1 down, which is c3. So you can see from the square e4 this knight can jump to 8 different squares. So it's from that square e4 it has 8 different moves it can make, and it's always 2 squares in one direction and then 1 square in the other direction. Up, down, left or right. That doesn't matter. So the knight in the middle of the board always has 8 possible squares to jump to in one move. Let's put the knight in the corner and see what happens then. So this knight is on the square a1. So let's use the same rules. 2 squares in one direction and 1 square to the other direction, and see where this knight from a1 can go. From a1 the knight can go 2 up and 1 to the right to b3, or 2 squares to the left and 1 up is c2. And you can try, but there's no other squares this knight can go to, because it's in the corner. It can go down, it can go to the left. So from the corner square the knight can only go to b3 and c2. And this is already something to remember for when you play a game. It's not a very good idea to put your knight in the bottom corner, because from there it can only jump to 2 squares. It can only control 2 squares. While we saw earlier when we had the knight on e4, it could go to 8 possible squares. So the knight likes to be in the middle of the board, because then it can cover 8 different squares, while in the corner it only covers 2. But sometimes the knight ends up in the corner, sometimes there is nothing you can do about that. But then later you can try to put the knight in a better position. As I said, the knights like to be in the center of the board. Okay, so this is a jumping piece, a piece that can jump over other pieces and that moves in a strange way, 2 squares one way and then 1 square the other way. So this is something to practice, and I'll show you one little practice now. With the knight here on g1, and you can say, how can we go from g1 to the square b6? So you may want to try that for yourself, and then you can pause this video, because now I'll show you how this knight goes from g1 to b6. It can't go in one move, of course, because it can only go 2 squares up and 1 to the side on each move. So in the first move it could go to f3. On the second move it could go to 2 to the left and 1 up to d4. And then we can go 2 up and 1 to the left, c6. But we want to go to b6, so we're still not there. So how do we get from c6 to b6? Well, not in one move, but we can go, for example, 2 to the left, 1 down to a5. From a5 we go 2 to the right and 1 down to c4. And now finally we could reach the square b6 by going 2 up and 1 to the left. So this is just to show you how the knight jumps, how it can reach every square on this chessboard, but sometimes you have to make a number of moves before it can get there. So a complex piece, but a very interesting piece. Because it makes such strange moves, it always delivers surprises. The knight is a very exciting piece. Hope you enjoy this. In the next video we'll talk about the pawn. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.